Guys, the S&P 500 is at a level of support. So is the NASDAQ a bit. We're going to take a look at what the next steps are for the overall market. We're going to take a look at the large tech stocks. NVIDIA is doing a bit decently after hours. We're going to take a look at all of that good stuff. One step at a time. Do not try to rush these gains, especially do not try to rush things heading into the end of February into the middle of March, because seasonality-wise, things start to get a bit turbulent. We're going to take a look at all of these things. All right. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. So number one, let's take a look at seasonality. Heading into the end of February, early May, or like the end of February, we get a bit of a pullback. Early March, we get a bounce. And then again, heading into the middle of March, we get a bit of a pullback. So this is data from the last 20 years of the S&P 500. Numbers don't lie. So let's just see if this continues to be true. The next thing, which is the most important thing so far for today, was NVIDIA, right? So NVIDIA looks like it's a bit flat. It's up about $1 in the after hours. Nothing crazy. So we're going to have to see, as long as NVIDIA does not break down lower. That's the main thing. If NVIDIA does not break down lower, then we have room to go to the upside. But essentially, that's really it for NVIDIA. We have the levels. We have everything that we're going to be trying to ascertain. But the main thing now is if these levels are going to hold as support. Do you want to be overly aggressively bullish into the end of the month? No. Are we expecting choppy price action? Absolutely. Because seasonality-wise, just all of the other NVIDIA, Netflix, Meta taking dips, all of these things come into play. So what I was saying today, though, specifically, I was heading into today, I was expecting us to be bullish. I was expecting us to get a bit of a bounce. We got that bounce. And just as a recap, the main reason why I was expecting a bounce was because the IWM was very far overextended to the downside in terms of its Bollinger Band. So as we know, when something is very far overextended to the downside, according to its Bollinger Band, it wants to return back in. So this morning, the IWM was the biggest winner. And because the IWM was doing so well and being so strong, the overall market was very, very strong before Trump spoke. And because it was so strong, it helped pull the S&P 500 up. And because basically the IWM, especially because I also knew that heading into earnings for NVIDIA, we would have an earnings run up. So once again, there's many things. So an earnings run up, what that means, quick recap, right? An earnings run up is when these large tech stocks have earnings date, right? Price tends to rally into that date, into the earnings call. That's exactly what ended up happening. So not only that was one check mark. NVIDIA bounced heading into earnings. The second check mark, IWM was very far overextended. It was going to bounce. That also worked out. So those were really important. And then the third check mark that I was saying was the VIX was going to get a bit of a pullback and hold above 1850. That's exactly what ended up happening. We closed above 19. But regardless, I was bearish on the VIX. The reason why we look at the VIX is because it has an inverse relationship to the market. If the VIX falls, then that's very bullish for the overall market. So yesterday I was saying, look, guys, this is not a bullish setup on the VIX. The VIX should definitely fall. The IWM should bounce, and NVIDIA should bounce. All three of those things ended up happening, and that helped the market bounce today. So now, great. Congratulations. Now the question is, what's going to end up happening next? Now, what I want to really look at here, so in terms of the VIX does not look great. Obviously, it's still, in my opinion, this could fall a bit lower. And if the VIX falls lower, then the overall market could bounce. Great. But it's not as extreme as it was the day before. So it's not going to be as easy to get an indication of what is going to happen. Truthfully, okay? What I do want to look at is the SPX. So at the moment, the SPX is continuing to hold this very important trend line. We got the retest to the 38.2% fib. And now the real test on the SPX is going to be if we could break back above essentially today's highs and retest within the 50 and the 618% fib. That would essentially put the SPX between 60.30 and 60.60. If that ends up occurring, then how far away is that currently? That's essentially a percentage and a half away. Over here, either between the 38.2 and the 50, or the 50 and the 618, these are going to be really, really good shorting opportunities. Because NVIDIA was not extremely bearish, because the VIX did not start to spike very aggressively, and because the lows held, the SPY still held above 593, 594. All of these things are hinting at a bit of maybe chop, but a move to the upside. And then once we get to these levels, that's when the market is going to make a decision whether we're going to fall heading into the end of the month, or what's really going to end up happening. But overall, what we saw with seasonality, very, very simply, what we saw with seasonality is that into the end of the month, we're bearish. In the beginning of the month, in the first week and a half, things are bullish. So, yeah, we could chop around. We could show some weakness, but things do tend to bounce. Now, to see if that's going to end up happening, let's look at how the NDX is responding. The NDX is also holding its trend line support. The SPX is also holding its trend line support. The IWM is still trading outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Bands. Yes, we got a bit of a bounce today, but this is still very far overextended to the downside. So, this is my thought process. And I'm sure this is everyone's thought process watching this video. Just what do you think innately is going to end up happening? Bounce and then a pullback lower. This is innately everyone's thought process. This is my thought process. I'm sure this is your thought process as well. It doesn't really look good for a bounce to occur from these levels. But what I want you guys to realize is that when something like this does not look perfect for a bounce, that tends to be a good opportunity for a bit of a bounce. It tends to be a good opportunity to load into longer term calls, get a bit of a bounce. That's essentially it. And if this doesn't hold, then we're going to fall down to, of course, these prior lows at 58.30 to 5800, 58.80 over here, right? Now, just to really, really drive home my point, the people that were short up here, where would they want to take profit on their shorts? Over here. This is where a lot of shorts are going to be covering at the 590, 589, 591 area that dropped yesterday on the SPY and today, right? This is where people are going to want to try to cover their shorts. Where would they want to reshort? At levels of resistance. Now, the market needs to bounce a bit higher before we get to those levels of resistance, because I think shorting down here into the weakness, basically like aggressively trying to short into this weakness, is still very aggressive, and it could work. Innately, you could feel the bearish momentum. It could still work, but NVIDIA's earnings wasn't terrible. NVIDIA is still green. Large tech stocks are still doing decently. They're holding support. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really, really interesting, but, you know, I don't think that we're going to just capitulate. We could, but it makes way more sense in terms of price action, in terms of where big money would want to take profits and everything, where they would want to reshort. It's higher, in my opinion. And this is where people would want to take profit. And because people are going to want to take profit, the market's going to bounce. Similarly, people who shorted up here, where would they want to take profit? Down here. Where did it bounce? It bounced to at least prior levels of resistance, right? And then since the momentum was still bearish, we ended up getting new lows. Great. We haven't gotten to that point yet. Does that make sense? We haven't gotten a bounce back yet. So that's what I'm essentially looking for. If we get a bit of a lower move, either here or here, these are still really good long opportunities. Heading into March, the beginning of March, good long opportunities, in my opinion. So that's honestly, this is really it. We could look at the large tech stocks. It's a mixed basket. Amazon, I was saying Amazon was going to bounce. Amazon bounced. It still has more room to go to 220. Tesla is at the lows as well, guys. Is this a time to start going short on Tesla? No. I was saying how Tesla had major support around 275 to 290. We're almost at the zone now. Does this make sense? Is this a place where people would want to start going short Tesla? No. This is where people who went short over here and who went short over here are taking profits. They're taking profits on their shorts over here. What happens when shorts cover? It bounces. So, just pragmatically, objectively speaking, that is what I'm looking at on Tesla. Microsoft, we drew this yesterday. I was saying Microsoft has room to 392, 395 to bounce. That's currently what's going on right now on Microsoft. We pulled back to that area and we bounced. Same concept. Google, same concept. We are coming down to levels of support on Google. Market should bounce. This is not a time to start going short. How much did Google drop so far? Almost 16%. Is this a time to start going short on Google now that it dropped 16% since the beginning of the month? No, definitely not. So just pragmatically speaking, we have to put two and two together about when it would be the most ideal situation for shorts to take profit on their shorts. It's looking like it. Apple, money is flowing out of Apple. It was the biggest winner. Makes sense. We're getting a bit of a pullback. Spectacular. We're still holding support above 240. And we could have room to go to 233, 235 down here. But once again, NVIDIA is showing love. These other large tech stocks are getting some love. Meta also is getting a bit of a bounce. It was one of the biggest winners. Got a huge pullback. Now it's getting a bounce, right? So money is just flowing around. Netflix is also getting a bit of a bounce. Very normal behavior. Very, very normal price action. Of course, it's turbulent. Of course, it's very volatile. But this is normal market behavior. And we checked out everything. We checked out all the large tech stocks. AMD is garbage. AMD is garbage. Screw AMD. But NVIDIA is doing its thing. Thankfully, it didn't break down lower. It's not in the 120s after earnings. I was saying this is bigger than just a company. This is the pride of America and capitalism. NVIDIA, there's no way NVIDIA is going to do very badly. I think NVIDIA is one of those companies that is at the forefront of just superpower political games. And I think it's going to continue to remain that way. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. So with that being said, NVIDIA should be a continued buy on any sort of weakness or any dips. That's really it, honestly. That's really it. Honestly, there's nothing else to really talk about. The SPX is holding support. The NDX is also holding support. These large tech stocks are just rotating. This is just a normal rotation. Even if we do end up making new lows, these are still buying opportunities for longer term, in my opinion. Because then you could just play March and you could play the bounce. But we'll see. We'll take it one day at a time. This is my thought process. I'm not giving any long-term, weekly estimations or guesses of what's going to happen in the market. But so far, this is what we're seeing. Tesla, we looked at all the large tech stocks. I gave my thought process on all that stuff. I hope this makes sense. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. And with that being said, hope you guys had an amazing day. Hope you guys had an amazing week. I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. I appreciate you guys for watching the video towards the end. All right. Love you guys. Have a good one. Take care.